They called him just a pet, a nuisance, an old dog. But Buster was the warm weight that reminded me I wasn't entirely alone in this big, empty house. He was the reason I still bothered to put on my slippers each morning, the reason I still felt a flutter of joy. My wife, Eleanor, had been gone 5 years now. The silence she left behind was a physical thing. It pressed in on me, heavy and cold. Buster, a scruffy terrier mix we rescued together, was the only one who chased that silence away. He'd nudge my hand, his tail a gentle thud-thud against the floorboards. He'd look at me with those ancient, knowing eyes, and for a moment, the world felt right again. This house. It had been Eleanor's and mine for 50 years. Every creak, every stain on the wallpaper held a memory. Our children, David and Sarah, grew up within these walls. They brought their own children here for Christmases, for birthdays, for Sunday lunches that were once filled with laughter. Now those lunches felt different, strained. The conversations started subtly after Eleanor passed. Little comments about the market, about future planning. At first I dismissed them. Just children worried about their aging father. But the tone shifted. The visits became less about me and more about the house, its value, its potential. Then Buster entered the picture. Or rather, he had always been there, a quiet shadow by my side. But as their interest in the house grew, so did their disdain for him. "Dad, he smells," David would say, wrinkling his nose as Buster padded into the living room, seeking a scratch behind the ears. "He sheds everywhere," Sarah would complain, picking invisible hairs off her designer clothes. "It's not hygienic, especially with the grandchildren around." I'd try to explain. "He's old, like me, and he's clean. He's part of the furniture now." They'd laugh, a polite, dismissive sound that always made my stomach clench. "Part of the furniture? Dad, he's a dog, just a dog." I kept my peace. I cleaned up Buster's stray hairs more diligently. I bathed him more often. I tried to make him invisible, a ghost of a companion for their visits, but it was never enough. The real turning point came last winter, a bitter cold Sunday. David and Sarah had arrived unannounced for one of their check-in visits. They'd brought a stack of brochures, retirement communities, assisted living facilities, bright, glossy pictures of smiling seniors playing bingo and tending immaculate gardens. "We just want what's best for you, Dad," Sarah said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. She tapped a brochure. "Look at this one. They have lovely activities and full-time care." I stared at the images. People my age, yes, but strangers, in a strange place. My heart ached for this house, for my memories, for Buster. "I'm fine here," I said, my voice thin. "I can manage perfectly well." David sighed, a loud theatrical sound that implied my stubbornness was a great burden. "Dad, realistically, this house is too much for you. The upkeep alone, and it's prime real estate. Think of the equity." That word, equity. It rang in my ears like a death knell. It wasn't about me. It was never about me. It was about the money. Then Buster, sensing the tension, nudged my hand from beneath the table. He offered a soft whine, his head resting on my knee. David looked down at him, his face hardening. "And there's the dog," he said, as if Buster were a cockroach. "They don't allow pets in most of these places, Dad. At least, not one this big and old." A cold dread spread through me. I gripped Buster's fur tightly. Sarah leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Honestly, Dad, if you insist on staying here, and we know you can't, he'll become a real problem. What happens when you can't walk him? What happens when you get sick? We can't be dealing with an old dog on top of everything else." "We'd have to." Make arrangements, David added, his voice devoid of emotion, for him to find a new home, a more suitable one. My breath caught in my throat. New home. They meant surrender him, put him down. I looked at Buster, his brown eyes wide and innocent, trusting. He was my family, the last piece of my family, and they were threatening him, threatening to take him away, to discard him like a broken toy. My own children, the ones I'd nurtured, protected, loved unconditionally. They stood there, in my living room, talking about making arrangements for my most precious companion. It was a knife twist to my soul, a betrayal so profound, it stole my words. I felt a tremor run through me. Not of fear, not entirely. It was a slow burn, deep in my chest, a heat I hadn't felt in years, a resolve hardening like stone. "He's not going anywhere," I managed to rasp, my voice barely a whisper. David scoffed. "Dad, don't be ridiculous. He's just a pet." Just a pet. The words echoed. They hit something primal within me, something ancient. That night, after they had left, leaving their glossy brochures scattered on my coffee table like insults, I sat on the floor with Buster, his soft fur against my cheek, his gentle breathing a comfort in the oppressive silence. I looked into his eyes, and a decision, quiet and firm, settled in my heart. They wanted to make arrangements for Buster's future, for my future, for the house's future. Very well. I would make arrangements of my own, not just for Buster, but for them. A new home. They wanted a new home for Buster? I would give them one too, but it wouldn't be the one they expected. The first step, I decided, was to remember everything, every slight, every dismissive glance, every cruel word, and I would start with the will, my will. It was time to rewrite history and their future. The words echoed. Just a pet, a cold, sharp blade twisting in an old wound. I had replayed the conversation 100 times, each memory a fresh stab of disbelief. They meant it. They truly meant it. Charlie, my last loyal companion, my shadow, my reason for smiling each morning, was nothing but a nuisance to them, a thing to be dealt with. My mind drifted back. Sunday, the usual chaos. My daughter Sarah, her voice a little too loud, bustling into the kitchen. My son David already making himself comfortable on the sofa, scrolling through his phone. The grandchildren, a flurry of excited energy, immediately demanding my attention, not out of affection, but expectation. They always expected something: food, money for their games, a ride somewhere. Charlie, sensing the shift in the house's rhythm, had retreated under the dining room table. His sanctuary. He was a gentle soul, but the noise, the sudden movements, they overwhelmed him sometimes. He liked peace, just like me. "Dad, are you sure you need all this space?" Sarah had asked, gesturing vaguely around the living room. "This house is just enormous for one person and one dog." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was the same smile she used when suggesting I downsize, move closer to her, into a small apartment she'd found for me, an apartment where pets weren't allowed. David chimed in from the sofa, not even looking up. "Yeah, Dad, imagine the upkeep. And Charlie, he's not getting any younger. A big yard like this, it's a lot for him too, isn't it?" The implication hung heavy in the air. Charlie was a burden, not a beloved member of the family, not a comfort, a burden. I felt a familiar tightening in my chest. This wasn't new. This conversation, or variations of it, had been happening for years. After their mother passed, the discussions intensified. The house, my savings, my future. Always my future, but dictated by their present needs. But the threat to Charlie, that was new. That was a line crossed. Later that afternoon, after the plates had been cleared and the last grandchild had been dragged away, Sarah lingered. David had already left, muttering something about a forgotten appointment. "Dad," she began, her tone softer now, almost manipulative. "We just worry about you. And Charlie." I looked at her, searching for sincerity. I found none. "Charlie is fine, Sarah," I said, my voice flat. "But what if something happens to you? Who would take care of him then?" "We couldn't, Dad. You know how busy we are. And the kids are allergic." A blatant lie. The kids played with Charlie often enough when they were younger, before they became too cool for an old dog. Their allergies seemed to appear and disappear with their convenience. "We were thinking," she continued, "maybe it's time to consider a small, cozy place where everything is taken care of for you. No worries about the garden or the roof." She spoke as if she were offering me a luxury cruise, not a cage. "And Charlie?" I asked, testing her. She sighed, a put-upon martyr. "Well, Dad, that's the thing. Most of those places, they don't allow pets. He's an old dog, Dad. It might be kinder, really, to find him a good home somewhere else." A good home somewhere else. My own child, suggesting I abandon the one creature who loved me unconditionally, the one who never asked for anything but a warm pat and a bowl of kibble, the one who lay beside me in the quiet evenings, listening to my stories, soaking up my sorrow and my joy. I looked at Charlie then, curled up on his favorite rug by the fireplace, his old eyes half closed. He twitched an ear, sensing my gaze. He was oblivious to the schemes, the casual cruelty unfolding around him. He trusted me, and I had always protected him. A deep, unfamiliar chill spread through me, replacing the usual ache of loneliness. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was something harder, something resolute. My children, my flesh and blood, had seen me as a resource. My house, my pension, my declining years, all were assets to be managed, to be redistributed. My feelings, my desires, my very being had become secondary, disposable, and Charlie was just collateral damage in their grand plan. I remembered the countless nights I'd spent working overtime to pay for their private school tuition, the holidays I'd foregone to save for their college funds, the dreams I'd quietly put aside, believing their happiness was my own. I had built this house with my own hands, filled it with love and laughter. It was their home too, once. Now it was just a prize, and I was simply the aging guardian of their inheritance. The next few days were a blur of quiet observation. I watched my children through new eyes. Every phone call, every visit, every casual comment about the future. I saw their calculating glances, their thinly veiled impatience. They didn't see me. They saw the house. They saw the potential. They saw dollar signs where my memories lay. Charlie seemed to sense my inner turmoil. He was more watchful, closer than ever. He would nudge my hand with his wet nose, his tail a gentle thud against the floorboards. His unconditional presence was a stark contrast to their conditional affection. I started taking longer walks with Charlie, out past the old oak tree, down towards the creek. The air was crisp, the fallen leaves crunching underfoot. We walked in silence, just the two of us, a quiet understanding passing between us. He was old, but his spirit was still bright, still full of innocent joy. He deserved peace. He deserved safety. He deserved loyalty. And so did I. It was during one of these walks, watching Charlie chase a fluttering leaf with surprising agility, that the pieces finally clicked into place. The full weight of their betrayal, the casual cruelty, the deep disrespect. It coalesced into a single, undeniable truth. They had not only threatened my dog, they had threatened my dignity, my autonomy, my very sense of worth. My blood was still pumping, my mind still sharp. My hands, though gnarled with age, still knew how to work. My will, though tested, was not broken. I had given them everything: my youth, my resources, my heart. And what had they given me in return? Conditional love, casual dismissal, and a threat to my only true companion. A cold, hard resolve settled in my bones. I had spent a lifetime building a home. Now I would find them a new one, a home for their expectations, a home for their entitlement, a new home that wouldn't include mine. The path ahead was clear, though daunting. It would require courage. It would require precision. It would require a steely will that I hadn't known I still possessed. But as I looked at Charlie, panting happily by my side, I knew I had to do it. For him. For myself. That evening, I sat down at my old desk, the one filled with bills and old photographs. I picked up the phone. It was time to start making calls, not to my children, but to others, people who saw things differently, people who still understood the meaning of loyalty. The game was far from over. It was just about to begin. The chill that ran through me wasn't from the autumn air. It was a deep, bone-cold dread. Just a pet, they'd sneered, as if Daisy's life, her warmth, her very presence meant nothing, as if she was a disposable item, easily replaced, or worse, easily removed. I watched them that evening, my son, Mark, his wife, Sarah, my grandchildren, oblivious in their digital worlds. They laughed. They ate the meal I'd prepared. They discussed their plans for my house, my future. They spoke of renovating, of selling off my old furniture. Their voices were loud, confident. They sounded like owners. Daisy lay curled at my feet, her soft breathing a counterpoint to their grating words. She was my anchor, my last true family, and they had threatened her. The thought, once a whisper, began to solidify. I couldn't trust them, not with my home, not with my peace, and certainly not with Daisy. The fear of being discarded, once a vague unease, now had a face. Daisy, whimpering, alone, in a stranger's care. It was unacceptable. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my old armchair. Daisy nestled beside me. Her head rested on my lap, her little snores a comfort. I stroked her fur, feeling the steady beat of her heart. I will protect you, my girl. It wasn't a promise spoken aloud, but a vow etched deep into my soul. My mind, once clouded by resignation and a desire for peace, sharpened. I thought of every slight, every dismissive wave of the hand, every time they'd called me old-fashioned or stubborn, every financial suggestion that conveniently benefited them. It all clicked into place. They weren't just careless, they were calculating. The next morning, I moved with a deliberate calm I hadn't felt in years. I went through my daily routine, making coffee, feeding Daisy, reading the newspaper. But underneath, a storm was brewing, a very quiet storm. My first step was small, almost invisible. I retrieved an old dust-covered box from the attic. Inside, tucked away beneath faded photographs, were my original house deeds, old bank statements, and my current will. I'd made it years ago, leaving everything to Mark, with a small provision for Sarah. Daisy wasn't even mentioned. How foolish I had been. I spent hours poring over the documents. My eyesight wasn't what it used to be, but the details stood out in stark relief. This house, my house, the one I had bought with my late wife, paid for with decades of hard work. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. Their plans to update it, to modernize it, felt like an invasion. And the idea of them selling it, turning my memories into their profit, was a physical ache. I realized I needed professional advice. But not from just any lawyer. I needed someone who understood the complexities of elder law, someone discreet. I remembered a name from an old friend years ago. He's a good man, Arthur, my friend had said. Firm but fair, knows how to navigate these tricky family matters. I found his number in my old address book, tucked into a pocket of my worn leather wallet. My hand trembled slightly as I dialed. The voice on the other end was professional, calm. I made an appointment for the following week, explaining only that I needed to review some estate planning. No mention of Mark or Sarah. Not yet. Over the next few days, I became an observer in my own home. I watched Mark and Sarah. They continued to act as if they owned the place. Sarah complained about Daisy's fur on the rug, about the way Daisy sometimes barked at the mailman. Honestly, Dad, she'd sigh, that dog is a nuisance. You should really consider putting her in a kennel when we have guests over. My heart pounded. A kennel. For Daisy. They spoke of her as if she were an inconvenience, an obstacle to their perfect, sterile future. Mark, ever the pragmatist, chimed in. Or maybe it's time to consider a proper, controlled environment for her. A good home for older dogs. They have excellent facilities now, Dad. She'd be happier, less stressed. He smiled, a practiced, reassuring smile that did nothing to calm the cold knot in my stomach. He was talking about a dog shelter, a quiet, euphemistic way of saying they wanted her gone. Daisy, my loyal companion of 10 years, my shadow, my confidant. I simply nodded, a non-committal grunt, and excused myself, taking Daisy with me for our usual afternoon walk. The autumn leaves crunched underfoot. Daisy trotted happily beside me, occasionally looking up with those trusting eyes. How could I let them do that to her? During our walk, I started formulating a plan for Daisy's immediate future. If I was going to make big changes, I needed her safe, away from any potential family backlash. I remembered a small family-run pet resort a few towns over. It wasn't a kennel. It was a place where dogs truly vacationed. I'd seen their brochures years ago. It would be expensive, but Daisy was worth every penny. Back home, started a new secret project. I bought a small fireproof safe, not for money but for documents. I started systematically collecting everything important: my pension statements, medical records, insurance policies, and most importantly, the original purchase agreement for the house. Each evening, after everyone else was asleep, I'd carefully place a few more items into the safe, locking it away behind a heavy painting in my study. I also began to discreetly transfer funds, a small amount at first, from my main bank account to a new online-only account that Mark and Sarah had no knowledge of. I set up automatic transfers. They wouldn't notice a few $100s disappearing here and there from my primary account, which they had access to for managing my bills. The idea was to build up a substantial reserve, untraceable by them, for Daisy's care and for my own future. The weight of their control was heavy. They managed my investments, my bills, even my doctor's appointments. They saw it as helping me, being responsible. I saw it as a slow, insidious takeover. Now, I was taking pieces back, slowly, silently. The day of my appointment with the lawyer arrived. I told Mark and Sarah I was visiting an old friend. They barely looked up from their phones. Their indifference was almost a relief. It meant they wouldn't ask questions. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, was exactly as my friend had described. A man with kind eyes and a sharp mind. He listened patiently as I explained, carefully, not revealing everything, but enough. I spoke of wanting to restructure my estate, to ensure my pet's future, and to clarify living arrangements. He asked precise questions. Mr. Peterson, are you comfortable in your current living situation? Do you feel pressured in any way regarding your assets? Do you have any immediate concerns for your personal safety or the safety of your pet? I chose my words carefully. I want to make sure I have full control over my life and my assets. And yes, I admitted, my voice dropping to a near whisper, I am concerned for my dog Daisy. Her well being is paramount. He nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. I understand. Let's start with your will. We can amend it to include a pet trust, ensuring Daisy is cared for financially after you're gone. And regarding your living situation, we need to establish clear boundaries, legally. Your son and daughter in law currently reside in your home. Do they pay rent? No, I said. They said they were helping me out. He raised an eyebrow. Helping you out while living rent free in your property. That's a common arrangement. But it complicates matters if you wish to change that arrangement. He laid out my options, detailing the legal steps involved in altering my will, establishing a pet trust, and most significantly, revoking any informal agreements regarding their tenancy. He spoke of notices, legal timelines, and the need for clear communication handled by his office. The process would be slow, it would be deliberate, and it would require a level of detachment I wasn't sure I possessed. But as I sat there, looking out the window at the bustling city street, I thought of Daisy's soft fur, her trusting gaze, and I knew I had to be strong for her. Mr. Henderson handed me a folder. Review these documents, Mr. Peterson. Think carefully about each step. This is a significant decision. We can proceed at your pace, but once you commit, we must follow through. I walked out of his office, feeling a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The fear of confrontation, of the emotional fallout, but the exhilaration of taking back control, of being seen, truly seen, by someone other than Daisy. The ride home was quiet. I clutched the folder, its contents a secret weapon. I knew what I had to do. The path was clear, albeit daunting. The first strike against their comfortable complacency was about to be made, not with anger, but with the cold, hard logic of the law. They called her just a pet. They would soon learn that just a pet was the spark that ignited a revolution in an old man's heart. I pulled into the driveway. Mark's car was there, Sarah's car too. They were home, oblivious. My secret weapon still tucked under my arm. I walked into the house, ready to face their casual disrespect one last time before the tide turned. I just needed to sign one more document, the one that began the formal process. The words still echoed. Get rid of that mud, Dad, or we will. Not a suggestion, a threat, a promise delivered with cold, unfeeling eyes. That was the line I never thought they would cross. But they had. They truly had. Buddy nuzzled my hand. His warmth was the only real comfort I knew anymore. They called him just a pet, but he was my family, the last one I could trust. And for him, I would do anything. My mind, once clouded by sadness and resignation, cleared with a terrible focus. I started small. Late at night, after they were asleep, I'd take my old laptop. Buddy would curl on the rug beside me, a silent conspirator. I typed keywords. Pet-friendly senior living. Apartments with dog parks. I learned about new rules, new communities, new possibilities. Each search felt like a step toward a different life. A life for Buddy. A life for me. The calls were harder. I'd sneak out to the garage, pretending to tinker with old tools. My voice, usually soft, became firm, clear. I asked questions about pet policies, about security, about quiet hours. I was planning, methodically, painfully, but planning nonetheless. Then came the real estate agent, a referral from an old friend. Discreet, I'd emphasized, utmost discretion. She understood immediately. Perhaps she'd seen this situation before. A silent nod. a knowing look. She walked through my house, the house where my wife and I had raised our son, where countless Christmases had shone with laughter. Now it felt cold, empty, not a home, just a shell they inhabited. The valuation came quickly, higher than I'd expected. The market was hot. I felt a strange mix of triumph and sorrow. This house, the symbol of my life, was now a commodity, a way out, a means to protect Buddy. My son, Mark, still complained about Buddy's shedding. Dad, honestly, it's getting ridiculous. This isn't a kennel. His wife, Sarah, would chime in. We're hosting Sunday brunch next month. We can't have dog hair everywhere. They spoke as if Buddy wasn't even present, as if I wasn't present. Just a pet, they'd dismissively repeat. Each time the phrase solidified my resolve. I found a small apartment, not grand, not spacious like this house, but it had a sunny window seat, perfect for Buddy to watch the world. A small patch of grass just outside for his morning routine. It was quiet. It was ours. I placed a deposit. It felt like buying freedom. A lighter feeling settled over me than I'd known in years. A whisper of hope. The lawyer's office was next. My old will. It had been simple, everything to Mark. After all, he was my son. But Mark had made his choices. He had chosen disrespect. He had chosen to threaten Buddy. The old will was shredded, metaphorically and literally. My new will was precise, specific. Every asset, every penny, no loopholes, no room for argument. It was not about punishment, I reasoned. It was about consequence, about dignity, about ensuring Buddy's care and my own. The closing date for the house sale was set. It happened quickly. The buyers were eager. I signed the papers. My hand didn't shake. My resolve was iron. The house, my house, was no longer mine. It was a transaction, a key turning in a lock, a door closing. I held the small envelope. Inside, the proof, the papers that sealed their fate. I slipped it into my jacket pocket. They wouldn't know. Not yet. They were too busy. Too busy planning their next remodel, their next vacation, their next indulgence, all funded by a future they assumed was theirs. I watched them that evening. Mark on the sofa, scrolling on his phone, Sarah in the kitchen, complaining about dinner. Buddy lay at my feet, a silent guardian. They spoke over me, around me, never to me. Their world was comfortable, predictable, built on assumptions. But the ground beneath their feet had already begun to shift. They just didn't feel the tremor yet. Soon they would. And that day, they would find out what just a pet truly meant. The solicitor's letter lay on the table, heavy, final. It was addressed to each of them, my children, my grandchildren. I had signed it days ago, every clause read, every decision weighed. The house, their supposed inheritance, was no longer theirs to claim. It was sold, a private sale, discreet, effective. The funds, they would not see a penny. They would not benefit from my life's work, my careful savings, all redirected to a trust for animal welfare, for causes that understood unconditional love. My will was clear, unambiguous, no loopholes. The family had gathered that Sunday, a rare occurrence lately. They expected their usual feast, their usual complaints, their usual thinly veiled hints about my estate. They arrived, laughter, shouts, the usual chaos. Buddy, sensing the tension, stayed close to my feet, a comforting weight, a warm presence. My daughter Sarah glanced at the coffee table. Her eyes caught the stack of crisp white envelopes, her name visible on the top one. Her brow furrowed. "What's this, Dad?" she asked, a note of impatience in her voice. "Bills?" I shook my head. My voice was calm, measured. "No, dear, Not bills. My son Mark walked over. He picked up an envelope. His eyes scanned the formal header. His face paled. A solicitor? He murmured. A ripple of unease spread through the room. The usual boisterous atmosphere died down. My grandchildren, sensing the shift, fell silent. They looked from their parents to me, confused, curious. Sit down, everyone, I said. My voice carried a weight they hadn't heard in years, a quiet authority. They sat on the sofa, on the dining chairs I'd brought in, expectant, apprehensive. I looked at their faces, faces I had loved, faces that had, over time, grown distant, hard, selfish. You've all received a letter, I began. It explains everything. Sarah tore open her envelope. Her eyes darted across the page. Her lips moved, forming silent words. The color drained from her face. "What is this, Dad?" she shrieked, her voice rising, trembling. "The house? Sold? Without telling us?" Mark crumpled his letter. His face was a mask of disbelief. "This is a joke, right? Some kind of cruel trick?" I looked at them. Steady, unflinching. "No joke, no trick. It's done." "But where are we supposed to go?" Sarah stammered. "When you're gone? We always assumed—" "You assumed," I finished for her. "You assumed a great many things." "This is an outrage," Mark exploded. "You can't just cut us off. We're your children." My gaze drifted to Buddy. He was watching me, his big brown eyes filled with unwavering devotion. He nudged my hand gently, a silent strength. "Children," I repeated softly. "You call yourselves my children. But what kind of children threaten to send your father's only companion to the pound?" The room went silent again. The words hung in the air, a cold, stark reminder. Sarah's face flushed crimson. "That was just talk, Dad. He's just a dog." "Just a pet," Mark sneered, his voice laced with the same disdain he had used that day. "Honestly, Dad, you're letting an animal dictate your entire life." I smiled, a sad, tired smile. "He dictates my life with loyalty, with love, with presence." My voice hardened then, not with anger, but with the cold, clear resolve of a man who had reached his limit. "You called him just a pet," I said. My eyes met theirs, one by one. "You threatened his safety. You threatened the only source of comfort I had left in this house, the only one who truly cared. And that day," I continued, my gaze sweeping over their shocked, angry faces, "that day when you threatened Buddy and called him just a pet, that day I found you a new home." Their expressions contorted. Confusion turned to dawning horror. "You won't be needing this house anymore," I stated, "because it belongs to someone else now. The closing is next month. And as for your inheritance," I added, my voice devoid of emotion, "it has been carefully redistributed to those who truly appreciate unconditional love, to those who cannot speak for themselves, to those who show more compassion than any of you ever have." My son stepped forward, his face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this, Dad. You'll be all alone." I looked at Buddy, who rested his head on my knee. I stroked his soft fur. "I won't be alone," I said, my voice steady. "I will have my loyal friend, and I will have my peace." The silence that followed was deafening, filled only with their gasps, their angry whispers, their dawning realization of what they had truly lost. "The letters explain the dates," I concluded. "You have a month to clear out any personal belongings you may have stored here. After that, the new owners will take possession." I rose then. Buddy rose with me. He looked up, his tail giving a gentle wag, a silent testament to a bond they could never understand. I turned my back on them, walked towards the kitchen, towards the quiet solitude, towards the only true family I had left. The door slammed shut behind me. Their shouts soon followed, fading, distant, irrelevant. The house felt lighter, cleaner, empty already, even with them still in the living room. It was done. The new home for them was a future without me, without my house, without my money, a future born from their own callous disregard. And Buddy? He was safe. And for the first time in a very long time, so was I.